Hey everybody, it's Chris. Today we're looking at episode 4 of the Sci-Fi original Deadly Class. This was a great episode, so I'm excited to jump in, so let's just do it. If this is your first time here, I take TV shows and movies based on books and compare and contrast them to the source material. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future videos, and click that notification icon to join the notification squad, as it were, and be the first to know when something new drops. So just a quick warning here, since I do take the TV show and the source material and contrast them, there is a chance that I might convey some information that is spoilery in its nature. If that is a problem for you, go ahead and turn this off, and you could always come back and watch these videos after the season is done. Okay, with that out of the way, I think it's time to just jump in and get this thing going. Okay, first up we have Detention. This is another new bit for the show, and I loved it. I mean, every moment of it, from the Breakfast Club vibe to the very, very Goonies-like treasure hunt. I'm sort of disappointed that they didn't have a one-eyed skull show up in the treasure room, but I can let them pass on that, I guess. This is a perfect example where adaptations can make a story better. Nothing about this sequence changes or alters anything about the characters or plot. It merely adds more color to the life of the students at King's Dominion, as well as gives us memorable moments between the characters. I especially like the Chico Marcus stuff. In the comics, we only ever have, heated or deadly moments between the two, so these weren't friendly, but they were much less antagonistic than what we've seen previously, or really anything we saw in the comics, so very nice job there. Next up, we have the Golden Chest of Junk Food. It seems like this episode was geared towards injecting some lightness and fun into the story, which honestly is a great thing. The comic is a hell-bent slog into misery with little to no respite. It's the only thing I really didn't like about the book. At some point, the unceasing darkness becomes tiresome, making it necessary to put down the book for a bit. The show, though, is balancing this remarkably well. The first half of this episode is a moment of calm before the next major storm, where our plucky band of misfits can feel joy, however fleeting, and by extension, we as the audience get that breathing room to prepare us for what comes next. So, well done, writers. Well done. Okay, next we're going to look briefly at Saya Knievel. Speaking of some joy, this was probably my favorite part of the episode outside of the Chico Marcus interactions I mentioned earlier. Saya's character is incredibly complicated in ways we haven't even seen yet. So it was great to see her experiencing real, genuine joy for the first time in a long time. I would imagine, certainly the first time we've seen it on the show. Okay, next up we're going to look at Kuroki Yakuza. If you remember in an earlier video, I mentioned that they are pushing and pulling events and plots from the comic around in the show quite a bit. This is another great example. This storyline with Saya's brother and the killers he sends to retrieve her is in the comic, but not until much, much later. I am torn on how I feel about this, though. It's a great, great storyline from the comic, but pretty deep plot-wise. I am concerned that they are either wasting this storyline, which could have easily been the majority of a possible season 2, or they are going to do the whole thing at the same time as Marcus's main story, which means neither storyline will get the attention that they actually deserve. And this, friends, is the downside of adaptations. Sometimes they make short-sighted decisions that jeopardize the integrity of the material they are adapting. I guess we'll have to see how this develops to know, but I'm hoping for the best. Okay, up next we're going to look at Victor. I just have to say that this Victor is really nothing like the one in the comics, and that is a very, very good thing. In the comic, he is a pretty one-dimensional character and honestly forgettable. The comic Victor would have laughed and spit on the Victor we see near the end of this episode, showing fear and being on the edge of tears. So, yeah, score 1 for a more nuanced portrayal of a throwaway character from the comics. Well done, writers. Okay, next we're going to look at Maria. So this is new and fairly interesting. In the comic, Maria wants to be free from Chico, but running isn't really something she thinks of. Or if she does, it's not mentioned in the comics. She is more focused on him being killed without it being linked to her, since the vengeance of Chico's family is swift and brutal. I'm assuming, since they are doing the Las Vegas trip in the next episode, that they're going to stick pretty closely to the original storyline, which would make the passport meaningless. Unless they are going to change one aspect of the plot and base it on the passport instead of what we get in the comics version of events. That should be interesting to see, and if that's what they do, bravo, writers. That's an excellent way to kind of adapt this a little bit and make it a little better than what we saw in the comics. Next up, we have Battle of the Diner. This was odd. In the comics, there is a battle like this, sort of, with the brothers in the kabuki mask, but it isn't at a diner populated with deadly assassins, and the Kuroki don't breach the school and kill all the monks. This really bothered me given how formidable the school is supposed to be. That two guys, no matter how ruthless, could have taken out all of the monks and the deadly assassins in the diner pretty easily, it seems. I get that they wanted to show you that they were, bad news, but this seems stretching it a bit. Also, in the comics, both of the brothers are killed by a character that hasn't been introduced in the show yet. The moving of this plot super forward in the show is really kind of problematic, so I'm looking forward to seeing how they resolve all of this. And lastly, we're going to look at Billy. So the Las Vegas storyline is a pretty serious moment of change for Marcus and the crew. So many things in the comic changes after this moment that I can't see how they would change the broad strokes and still have it make sense. Luckily, it seems as if they aren't, given we already know from the trailer that they keep the stop off for drugs at the concert, for instance, which is pretty important. I'm really hoping that this storyline survives mostly intact from the comic, or at least they find a way to update it without losing what made it so important and so impactful when I first read it. Okay, that's it for me. Again, this was a fantastic episode. My little gripes notwithstanding, this is still one of the best adaptations I've ever seen from a comic book or a book to the screen. So bravo again to everyone involved in this show, from the set designers and the costumers to the actors and the writers. It's just all fantastic. Okay, yeah, that's it for me. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, give it a thumbs up if you thought it was great, give it a thumbs down if you thought it wasn't. That's fine, it's free internet, I won't hold it against you. And I will see you guys again in the next video. If you don't already know, I am running a poll in the community tab for this community about whether or not I should continue doing the Magicians going forward for various reasons. It's all laid out in that poll, so if you wouldn't mind going, if you're a Magicians fan or not a Magicians fan, go in there and let me know how you feel so I can know what to focus on with the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one, and in my next video I will have another book recommendation, which is exciting. So I will see you guys then.